You know what I've noticed after all these years of studying successful people and watching thousands try and fail? The ones who talk the most about what they're going to do are usually the ones who end up doing the least. That's not a criticism, it's just an observation that kept showing up in my life until I couldn't ignore it anymore. There's something peculiar about human nature that makes us want to announce our intentions before we've done anything worth announcing. We want the credit without the work, the applause without the performance, the recognition without the results. And let me tell you, this tendency has destroyed more dreams than lack of talent ever could. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was about 25 years old. I had this big plan. I was going to build a business, become financially independent, and show everyone that I wasn't going to live an ordinary life. So what did I do? I told everyone. I told my friends at the coffee shop. I told my relatives at family gatherings. I told the guy pumping my gas. I was so excited about what I was going to do that I spent more energy talking about it than actually doing it. And here's what happened. About 6 months later, I had to face all those same people and explain why it didn't work out. I had to eat humble pie at every turn. The embarrassment wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing that all that talking had drained something vital out of me. Every time I announced my plans and got a positive response, a little encouragement, that's great, it felt good. It felt so good that my brain thought I had already accomplished something, but I hadn't. I had just talked. And talking about doing something tricks your mind into thinking you've made progress when you haven't moved an inch. Here's what I've learned. When you announce your goals prematurely, you're essentially asking for validation before you've earned it. You're seeking approval from people who haven't walked your path, who don't understand your vision, and who frankly don't have any stake in whether you succeed or fail. Most people will say something encouraging because that's what polite people do. But their encouragement is empty because it's not based on anything real. It's based on your words, your promises, your intentions. And intentions without action are just daydreams. The truly successful people I've met over the years, the millionaires, the business builders, the ones who transformed their lives, they all had one thing in common. They worked quietly. They didn't need to tell you what they were building because they were too busy building it. They understood something fundamental about human psychology and success that most people miss entirely. Let me tell you what happens in your brain when you talk about your goals. Scientists have actually studied this, and what they found is fascinating. When you tell someone about a goal you're working toward and they respond positively, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that gets released when you actually achieve something. In other words, talking about your goals gives you an artificial high that mimics the feeling of accomplishment. Your brain can't tell the difference between the story of success and actual success. So what happens? You get the reward without doing the work. And once you've gotten that little chemical boost, your motivation to actually do the hard work diminishes. You've already gotten what you were really after: recognition, approval, the feeling that you're someone who's going somewhere. The problem is you haven't gone anywhere. You've just talked about going somewhere. And there's a universe of difference between the two. Now, I'm not saying you should never share your goals with anyone. What I'm saying is be very selective about who you tell and when you tell them. There's a difference between sharing with a mentor who can guide you and broadcasting to everyone who will listen. There's a difference between partnering with someone who's invested in your success and announcing to the world what you're about to do. The former is strategic, the latter is just noise. And here's a hard truth. Most people don't really want you to succeed beyond their own level of success. They don't wake up thinking about your dreams. They're thinking about their own lives, their own problems, their own limitations. When you share your big, ambitious goals with people who are stuck in mediocrity, you're inviting their doubts, their fears, and their limitations into your mind. They'll tell you why it won't work, why it's too risky, why you should be more realistic. And they'll do it with love, with concern, because they genuinely believe they're helping you. But what they're really doing is projecting their own fears onto your dream. I remember talking to a man once who told me he wanted to build a national company. This was back when he was working a regular job and barely making ends meet. He said, "Jim, I haven't told anyone about this except you and one other person I trust." I asked him why, and he said something I've never forgot. He said, "Because I need all my energy for the building, not for the explaining." That right there is wisdom. Building anything worthwhile requires enormous energy, mental, emotional, physical. Every time you stop to explain what you're doing, to justify your choices, to defend your dreams, you're spending energy that could be going into the actual work. It's like trying to drive a car with the emergency brake on. You might move forward, but you're wasting fuel and wearing down the machinery. The culture we live in today has made this problem worse. Social media has turned everyone into a broadcaster. People announce they're starting a diet before they've lost a pound. They declare they're writing a book before they've written a chapter. They proclaim they're starting a business before they've made a sale. And then what happens? Most of the time, nothing. The announcement becomes a substitute for the achievement. They get their likes, their comments, their little moment of feeling important, and then they quietly abandon the goal when no one's looking. 6 months later, nobody remembers the announcement except them, and they're left with the private shame of knowing they're all talk and no action. That's a terrible way to live. You start losing respect for yourself. You start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't follow through. And once that self-image takes hold, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Real power is quiet. Real confidence doesn't need an audience. When you know you're capable of something, when you're certain about your path, you don't need to convince anyone else. You just put your head down and do the work. Day after day, week after week, month after month, you show up and you do what needs to be done. Nobody's watching. Nobody's cheering. There are no likes, no comments, no validation, just you and the work. And let me tell you something, those are the most important days of your life. Those invisible days when nobody knows what you're doing, when nobody cares, when you could quit and no one would notice, those are the days that determine everything, because that's when character is built. That's when discipline becomes part of your identity. That's when you prove to yourself that you're serious. Here's a truth that took me years to fully understand. Success is not an event, it's a process. And most of that process is boring. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. If you're building a business, it's making phone calls that go nowhere, sending proposals that get rejected, working on spreadsheets at midnight. If you're trying to get in shape, it's doing the same workout for the 100th time, eating grilled chicken and vegetables when you'd rather have pizza, going to bed early when everyone else is out having fun. If you're developing a skill, it's practicing the basics over and over until they become second nature, studying when you're tired, pushing through frustration when progress seems invisible. None of this is Instagram worthy. None of this makes for good conversation at parties. But this is where success lives, in the boring, repetitive, unsexy daily actions that nobody sees. Think about a farmer for a minute. A farmer doesn't plant seeds and then invite the whole town to come watch them grow. He doesn't stand in his field announcing to everyone that he's growing corn. He plants in private, tends in private, works in private. He deals with the weather, the pests, the uncertainty, all by himself. Months go by where nothing visible is happening. To an outsider, it looks like he's just walking around in dirt. But the farmer knows something that outsiders don't underground, invisible to the eye. Roots are spreading, systems are developing, potential is being created. And then one day, the harvest comes. And when it does, there's no denying it. The corn is either there or it isn't. The results speak for themselves. Nobody needs to hear the story of how hard he worked because they can see the evidence right in front of them. That's how you need to approach your goals. Plant in private, tend in private, work in private. Let other people wonder what you're up to. Let them think you're just going about your regular life. Meanwhile, underground, invisible to everyone else, you're building something real. You're developing skills. You're creating systems. You're laying foundations. You're failing and learning and adjusting and improving. You're becoming someone different than who you were when you started. And all of this is happening in silence. No announcements, no updates, no audience, just you and your commitment to becoming better. Now let's talk about patience, because that's the other half of this equation. Working in silence is the what, but patience is the how long. And most people quit right before the harvest comes because they don't understand the principle of lag time. In nature, there's always a gap between planting and harvesting. You can't plant corn in the morning and expect to eat it for dinner. There's a season of waiting, a season of growth that cannot be rushed. The same principle applies to every worthwhile goal in life. You can't read a book on Monday and be an expert by Friday. You can't start a business in January and expect to be profitable by February. You can't work out for a week and expect to have the body you want. There's always lag time between effort and results. The problem is, we live in a world that's trained us to expect instant gratification. You press a button and food shows up at your door. You tap your phone and a car arrives to take you somewhere. You click a link and you have access to any information in the world. Everything is instant. Everything is immediate. Everything is now. So when you start working toward a meaningful goal and you don't see results right away, your brain thinks something's wrong. You start doubting yourself. You start wondering if you're on the right path. You start looking around at other people who seem to be succeeding faster, and you feel like you're being left behind. But here's what you're not seeing. You're not seeing their lag time. You're not seeing the years they put in before anyone noticed them. You're not seeing the failures, the rejections, the lonely nights when they wondered if any of it would work out. You're only seeing their harvest, not their planting season. I can tell you from personal experience, the lag time is where most people quit. They work hard for a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a year. And when they don't see dramatic results, they give up. They decide it's not working. They decide they're not good enough. They decide success is for other people, not for them. And they move on to the next thing, where they'll repeat the exact same pattern. What they don't realize is that they were probably closer to the breakthrough than they thought. They quit right before the compound effect was about to kick in. See, success doesn't happen in a straight line. You don't get 10% better every month in a nice, predictable progression. What usually happens is nothing, then boom, everything changes at once. But you only get to the boom if you survive the nothing. Let me tell you about compound interest, not just with money, but with effort. If you improve by just 1% every day, you don't see much difference day to day. After a month, you're only 30% better, which is nice, but not life-changing. But here's where it gets interesting. After a year of 1% daily improvement, you're not 365% better. Because of compounding, you're 37 times better than when you started. That's 700% improvement. But here's the catch. Most of that improvement happens in the later months, not the early ones. The first 6 months might only get you a few times better. Then it accelerates. Then it explodes. But most people quit in month 2 or 3 because they're not seeing dramatic results yet. They don't understand that they're building the foundation for exponential growth. Patience isn't about sitting around and hoping things get better. That's not patience, that's passivity. And passivity never created anything worthwhile. Real patience is active. It's continuing to show up and do the work even when you're not seeing immediate results. It's trusting the process even when the process is testing you. It's maintaining your standards even when no one's watching. It's refusing to take shortcuts even when shortcuts are tempting. It's believing in the lag time, understanding that results are coming even when you can't see them yet. That's real patience. And it's one of the rarest and most valuable qualities a person can develop. Here's what I've learned about staying patient while working in silence. You need rituals and systems that keep you moving forward, regardless of external validation. You can't rely on motivation because motivation comes and goes. You can't rely on inspiration because inspiration is unpredictable. What you can rely on is discipline expressed through daily rituals. For me, it was keeping a journal where I tracked my activities, not my results. I didn't write down made $1,000 today because some days I made nothing. But I could write down made 20 phone calls, read for 1 hour, worked on my skills for 90 minutes. I controlled the activities, and I knew that if I controlled the activities long enough, the results would take care of themselves. You need to create your own scoreboard, your own measurement system that acknowledges progress even when the world doesn't see it yet. Maybe it's tracking how many days in a row you've shown up. Maybe it's counting the number of attempts, the number of practices, the number of hours invested. Maybe it's noting the small improvements that only you can see, the conversation that went slightly better, the skill that feels slightly more natural, the mindset shift that's starting to take hold. These internal measurements keep you going when external results aren't visible yet. They remind you that you're making progress even when no one else knows it. Now let's talk about protecting your process, because this is where a lot of good intentions die. You can have the right goals, the right work ethic, the right patience, but if you don't protect your mental and emotional space, you won't make it. Here's what happens. You start working on something meaningful in silence, and at first it feels good. You're focused. You're making progress. You're in your own world. Then someone asks you what you're working on. It's an innocent question, usually asked with genuine interest. And this is where you have to be careful, because how you answer this question determines whether you maintain your momentum or lose it. If you tell them everything, your big vision, your ambitious goals, your timeline, several things happen, and none of them are good. First, you're inviting their opinion, whether you want it or not. And most people, even well-meaning ones, will respond from their own experience and limitations. If they've never built a business, they'll tell you why businesses fail. If they've never lost significant weight, they'll tell you why diets don't work. If they've never written a book, they'll tell you how hard publishing is. They're not trying to discourage you, they're just sharing what they know. But what they know is based on what they've done, and what they've done is not what you're trying to do. So their advice, while well-intentioned, is completely irrelevant to your situation. Second, when you share your goals with people who haven't achieved what you're trying to achieve, you're essentially asking them to believe in something they can't see. And most people can't do that. They look at who you are now, maybe you're broke, out of shape, unknown, and they can't imagine you being anything different. Not because they don't care about you, but because they can't see what you see. You have a vision of your future self. You can imagine the person you're becoming, but they only see who you are today. So when you tell them you're going to do something big, there's a disconnect. They nod and smile, but inside they're skeptical. And you can feel that skepticism, even if they don't voice it. That skepticism is poison. It seeps into your mind and plants seeds of doubt. Third, every time you explain what you're doing, you're spending energy on explanation instead of execution. Let me tell you something. I learned from some very successful people. The ones at the top don't explain themselves much. They don't need to. They're too busy doing. Explanation is exhausting. Justification is exhausting. Defending your choices is exhausting. And when you're trying to build something significant, you need every ounce of energy for the building. You can't afford to waste it on people who don't need to understand what you're doing anyway. So how do you handle the question, what are you working on, without being rude or secretive? You give a simple, truthful, but vague answer. I'm working on some personal projects, trying to improve myself, That's it. You're not lying. You're not being mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. You're just not inviting commentary on something that's still in development. If they press further, you can say, I'll have more to share when there's something concrete to show. This communicates that you're not being secretive. You just don't discuss things that are still in process. Most people will respect that and move on. Now, there's a difference between secrecy and privacy, and this is important to understand. Secrecy is hiding something because you're ashamed or afraid. Privacy is protecting something because it's valuable. You're not keeping your goals secret because you don't believe in them. You're keeping them private because you do believe in them, and you know they need to be protected while they're still fragile. A seed needs to be underground, in the dark, protected, before it can break through the soil and face the elements. Your goals are the same way. They need time in the dark, in the quiet, in the protected space of your own commitment, before they're strong enough to withstand public scrutiny. There is one exception to the rule of silence: finding the right mentor or partner. If you can find someone who's already accomplished what you're trying to accomplish, someone who has no reason to doubt you because they've walked the path themselves, then yes, share with them. Seek their guidance. Learn from their experience. But notice what I said, they've already accomplished it. Not someone who wants to accomplish it. Not someone who thinks about accomplishing it. Someone who's actually done it. Those people are rare, and when you find them, they're worth their weight in gold. But they're not broadcasting their advice on social media. They're not telling everyone what to do. They're selective about who they help because their time and wisdom are valuable. So if you're lucky enough to access someone like that, be humble, be teachable, and be willing to do what they tell you, even when it's hard. Here's another thing about protecting your process. You need to be ruthless about your inner circle. Not everyone gets access to your dreams. Not everyone deserves to know what you're building. Not everyone has earned the right to speak into your life. This isn't being elitist or arrogant. It's being wise. You become like the people you spend the most time with. If you're spending time with complainers, you'll start complaining. If you're spending time with people who make excuses, you'll start making excuses. If you're spending time with people who don't believe in growth and change, you'll start doubting your own ability to grow and change. On the flip side, if you spend time with people who are disciplined, ambitious, and committed to improvement, those qualities start rubbing off on you. Sometimes protecting your process means relationships have to change. Sometimes it means spending less time with people you care about because they're not supporting the direction you're heading. This is hard. This is really hard, but it's necessary. I'm not saying you cut everyone off or become a hermit. I'm saying you become intentional about who has access to your mind and heart during this crucial building phase. Some people need to be loved from a distance. You can care about them without being influenced by them. You can wish them well without spending your Friday nights with them. This is part of growing up, part of taking responsibility for your own development. Let me tell you what happens when you successfully work in silence and stay patient through the lag time. Eventually, the results come, and when they do, they speak louder than any announcement ever could. There's something powerful, almost magical, about showing rather than telling. When you tell people you're going to do something, they might believe you or they might not. But it doesn't matter either way because words are cheap. But when you show them what you've done, when you present results that can't be argued with, everything changes. There's no debate. There's no skepticism. There's just the undeniable evidence that you did what you said you would do, or more accurately, what you didn't say but did anyway. I've seen this play out dozens of times. Someone works quietly for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Nobody really knows what they're up to. Then suddenly, they emerge with something real, a successful business, a transformed body, a published book, a new career, a skill that's now generating income. And everyone's shocked. Where did this come from? How did this happen? It didn't happen suddenly. It happened gradually, consistently, in private, over a long period of time. But to the outside world, it looks like overnight success. That's because they weren't watching the process. They only see the result. The beauty of this approach is that results attract opportunities that announcements never could. When you tell people you're starting a business, they might say that's nice. When you show them that your business made $100,000 last year, suddenly they want to partner with you, invest in you, work with you. When you tell people you're getting in shape, they might say good luck. When you show up 40 pounds lighter with visible muscle definition, suddenly they want to know your secrets, your methods, your trainer. Results open doors that announcements don't even know exist. Results create credibility that no amount of talking can manufacture. Results prove that you're not just a dreamer, you're a doer. Here's what's interesting. When you finally do have results to show, you need to handle success with the same grace you handled obscurity. This is another place where people stumble. They work in silence. They achieve something real, and then they become obnoxious about it. They go from quiet and humble to loud and arrogant. They start posting constantly about their success, humble bragging, making sure everyone knows how well they're doing. And in doing so, they lose the very quality that made their success possible in the first place, the ability to work without needing external validation. The discipline that got you to success is the same discipline you need to maintain success. The humility that allowed you to work in silence is the same humility that will allow you to handle prosperity without becoming insufferable. I learned from a mentor once that there are 2 tests in life, the test of poverty and the test of prosperity. Most people understand that poverty tests you. When you're broke, when you're struggling, when nobody believes in you, that's clearly a test. What fewer people realize is that prosperity tests you just as much, maybe more. When you finally achieve something, when money starts coming in, when people start recognizing you, that's when you find out who you really are. Do you become arrogant? Do you forget where you came from? Do you start treating people differently? Or do you maintain the same character, the same values, the same work ethic that got you there in the first place? The people who last, who build sustainable success, are the ones who pass both tests. Let me tell you about staying grounded after you've achieved something. The key is remembering that the results don't define you. The process does. The business you built, the body you developed, the skill you mastered, those are byproducts of who you became. You didn't just create results, you created yourself. You became a person of discipline, patience, persistence, and focus. Those internal qualities are your real achievement, not the external results. The external results can be lost. The market can change, the business can fail, the body can age, the skill can become obsolete, but who you became in the process of building those things, that's permanent. That's the real prize. If you lose everything tomorrow, you can rebuild because you've rebuilt yourself. That's the real secret. Here's a reality you need to accept. Even when you have undeniable results, not everyone will celebrate you. Some people who doubted you will find ways to diminish your success. Oh, they got lucky. Oh, they had advantages I didn't have. Oh, it won't last. Let them talk. Their opinion of your success doesn't determine your success. Their skepticism doesn't reduce what you've accomplished. The scoreboard doesn't lie. Results are results. You don't need everyone to acknowledge them for them to be real. In fact, the people who are most critical of your success are usually the ones who are most disappointed in their own lack of it. Hurt people hurt people. Unsuccessful people criticize successful people. That's just how it works. And getting upset about it is a waste of your energy. What you want to cultivate is an internal scorecard, not an external one. An external scorecard is based on what other people think of you, what they say about you, how they react to your success. That scorecard will drive you crazy because you can't control it. You'll never get universal approval. There will always be critics, doubters, people who minimize what you've done. An internal scorecard is based on whether you're living up to your own standards, your own values, your own vision for who you want to be. Did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you maintain your integrity? Did you help people? Did you grow? Did you give your best effort? Those are the only questions that matter. If you can answer yes to those questions, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Let me bring this all together because I want you to really understand what I'm saying. Working in silence isn't about being secretive or antisocial. Staying patient isn't about being passive or complacent. Letting your results speak isn't about being arrogant or aloof. This is about understanding how success actually works and aligning your behavior with that reality. Success is built in private and displayed in public. Success is the result of thousands of small decisions and actions that nobody sees. Success requires you to believe in yourself even when no one else does. Success demands that you keep going when there's no evidence that it's working. Success asks you to trust the process even when the process is uncomfortable. You're going to face moments when working in silence feels lonely. You're going to watch other people get attention for announcing things they haven't done while you're actually doing things without announcement. That's going to bother you sometimes. You're going to wonder if anyone notices, if anyone cares, if it's even worth it. In those moments, remember this, you're not working for their applause. You're working for your freedom. You're working for your family's future. You're working to become the person you know you're capable of being. You're working because you made a promise to yourself, and that promise matters more than their opinions. You're going to face moments when staying patient feels impossible. You're going to want to quit because you've been working hard and you don't see results yet. You're going to compare your beginning to someone else's middle and feel like you're falling behind. You're going to doubt whether any of this is going to work. In those moments, remember, this lag time is real. The harvest is coming. The compound effect is building. Every day you show up, you're one day closer to the breakthrough. The seeds you planted haven't died. They're germinating underground where you can't see them. Just because you can't see growth doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Here's my challenge to you, and I want you to really consider this. For the next year, not a month, not 3 months, but a full year, commit to working in complete silence on one major goal. Don't announce it. Don't post about it. Don't seek validation for it. Just work. Show up every single day and do something that moves you closer to that goal. Keep a private journal of your efforts, your lessons, your progress. Watch what happens inside of you as you do this. Watch how your confidence grows, not from what people say about you, but from what you know about yourself. Watch how your discipline deepens when it's not being performed for an audience. Watch how your results compound when all your energy is going into execution instead of explanation. And here's what I predict will happen. A year from now, you'll be standing in a completely different place. You'll have achieved things that today seem unlikely or impossible. You'll have developed a level of self-trust that can't be shaken by other people's opinions. You'll have proven to yourself that you're capable of more than you realized. And the best part? Most people won't understand how it happened. They'll see the after without knowing about the during. They'll see the harvest without knowing about the planting. And you won't need to explain it to them because your results will tell the whole story. The truth is, the world doesn't need more talkers. We have plenty of those. The world needs more people who shut up and work. People who commit to something and see it through. People who understand that real success is built in the dark, in the quiet, in the unsexy daily grind that nobody sees. People who are patient enough to wait for the harvest and disciplined enough to keep working until it comes. People who let their results do the talking because they're too busy creating results to spend time talking about creating results. You have a choice to make. You can be someone who announces intentions and hopes people believe you, or you can be someone who produces results and makes belief irrelevant. You can seek validation before you've earned it, or you can earn it and then not need to seek it because it finds you. You can try to convince people with your words, or you can prove it with your actions. One path leads to a lifetime of talking about what you're going to do. The other path leads to actually doing it. The difference between those two paths is whether you're willing to work in silence, stay patient, and let your results speak for you. So here's my final word to you. Stop talking and start working. Stop seeking permission and start taking action. Stop explaining yourself and start proving yourself. Work like someone who has everything to gain and nothing to prove. Be patient like someone who understands that great things take time. And let your results speak like someone who knows that actions always speak louder than words. The life you want is on the other side of this discipline. The person you want to become is waiting for you to shut up and show up. Make the commitment today. Work in silence. Stay patient. Let your results speak. That's not just advice. That's the blueprint for a life well lived.